Oh, look at all my beautiful magnets. I just love them so much. I sure hope nobody steals them. That would be terrible. Look at all of them. They're so wonderful. Oh no! Hey! Hey, what are you doing? Come back here, you magnet stealer! Come back here! Oh, I gotta get you! I got you magnet stealer. Hello everybody, welcome to the second of our two-part video series on baby-led weaning. If you haven't seen the first part, I highly recommend you go back and check that out. Lots of great information and a good baseline for what we're going to talk about here today. We're going to touch on three main topics in this video. We'll cover allergens and the right way to introduce them into your baby's diet. We'll wrap up our overview of how we handle mealtimes with Xander now that he's no longer nursing. And finally, we'll have some real talk that I hope will help alleviate your fears about something a lot of parents worry about, which is choking. So we'll talk about what you can do to prevent that while your child is learning to eat. So let's get into it. Allergens are a major factor in starting solid foods because food allergies among children are on the rise. And there's no single factor that anyone has been able to point to in regards to why they're becoming so much more frequent. Many experts recommend you introduce each of the 8 major groups of allergens to your child as early as possible while they're transitioning to solids because it is believed that early exposure may reduce the likelihood that they'll develop food allergies later on. So the 8 major allergens, meaning the foods most commonly associated with allergic reactions, are milk, eggs, fish, shellfish, wheat, soy, peanuts, and tree nuts, which, as the name implies, are nuts that grow on trees like almonds, cashews, hazelnuts, chestnuts, pistachios, walnuts, and pecans. With Xander, we tried to isolate each allergen by serving it at meals for a couple of days at a time, and then waiting a few days afterward to observe and watch closely for any signs of a reaction. Sometimes the body needs to be exposed to an allergen multiple times before it forms an immune response. So it's important to do those repeated servings one at a time and then wait at least 3 days before moving on to the next allergen. If you do notice a reaction, whether it be hives, red or itchy skin, vomiting or swelling of the lips or tongue, you'll be able to pinpoint the cause, which will make it easier to consult your doctor and form a plan. It's worth noting here that serious anaphylactic reactions are exceedingly rare in infants and typically don't develop until a child gets older. Allergic reactions in infants are most often milder, which to me is all the more reason to expose them to these allergens as early as possible. So getting back to Xander's progress, ever since we cut nursing from his diet completely, we've started to do certain things to encourage his continued learning and improvement. First, we try to present him with a good variety of foods at each meal, usually 3 or 4 different choices whenever possible. And you don't have to do this every single time you eat. Sometimes you just whip up a batch of mac and cheese for lunch and let it go. But for most meals when he's eating at home, especially dinners, we do try to offer that variety when we can. We make up a plate that has everything on it at once, so we're not holding back to make him eat the healthier stuff first. That might seem counterintuitive, but when you give them the power of choice, you're letting them learn to make decisions for themselves, and you're putting trust in them, and in that process, while also destigmatizing the things that might be considered treats. We all know that it's human nature to want what we can't have, so by not putting those special foods up on a pedestal, we're decreasing the odds that your child will fixate on them in an unhealthy way. We also give Xander foods that we know he doesn't like. We might be having something he hasn't had a taste for in the past, but we always put a little serving on his plate just to make it available. People's tastes change over time, and if you just assume they're never going to like it because they didn't like it once, you're taking away the opportunity for them to try it again. They might just be especially hungry one night, decide they'll eat whatever's in front of them, and maybe they end up liking it. They say sometimes it takes as many as 10 to 15 opportunities before a child will decide that they like a certain food. By the same token, we also give him at least one safe food with every meal. That's something we know he does like, so that even if he doesn't touch anything else on his plate, he's got at least one food he can rely on. Having a safe food or two might even embolden your child to try new things. And finally, we serve dinner on a sectioned plate with child-safe utensils at every meal so that he has the option, again, of using a fork or spoon, and he feels more like one of the grown-ups instead of just dumping everything out onto the tray of his high chair. We also use a circular plastic mat under the table so he can explore and make a mess if he wants to, and it's not a big deal to clean up. Again, you're probably sensing a theme here. This is about giving them the power of choice, just having a plate there with utensils around. Even if they don't use them at first, you're presenting them with the option. And as they watch and observe how you're eating, they'll want to imitate you and follow along. Now, some foods are easier to eat with a fork or spoon than others, so it may take longer for them to get the hang of it. The key is to encourage the use of utensils without forcing it so they can explore and experiment at their own pace. The last topic we're going to cover in this video is choking. Now, choking is not the same thing as gagging, which is very common while a child is learning to eat. Let me say that again. Gagging is very common while a child is learning to eat. That's partly because a child's gag reflex is farther forward in their mouth than an adult's. The gag reflex actually moves back into the throat as we age, and that's a natural defense our bodies have for this very reason. You'll know the difference between gagging and choking because gagging is noisy. It involves coughing or gurgling, and it's something a child has the ability to work through on their own. Choking, on the other hand, means a piece of food has become lodged in the windpipe, and it is mostly silent, though it may be accompanied by high-pitched sounds while breathing. If you notice your child gagging, don't try to stick your finger in their mouth to get the food, because this can actually make things worse, and you can turn a gagging situation that they'll work through on their own into a choking one unintentionally. The gag reflex is only the first line of defense, and if things do actually get bad enough, vomiting is the body's way of clearing the throat of debris. Again, this is a natural and instinctive defense mechanism. I know this is a scary thing for parents, and sometimes it's very easy to worry about. But your child is probably more in tune with your demeanor and your attitude than you realize, and the last thing we want to do is make a situation worse than it is by overreacting. In fact, studies have shown a link between parental anxiety and the same conditions in their children. So the more we can do not to externalize or project our fears unless the situation calls for it, the higher the likelihood that we can encourage and enact measured responses during times of crisis. Now, I am not saying you shouldn't be alarmed or act quickly if you feel that your child is choking. That's typically signified by when they're making no sound, little or no motion of breathing, and turning blue or purple in the face. There are lots of resources out there for learning what to do in this situation. And if you're nervous about it at all, and you want to learn the proper methods for helping someone whose airway has become blocked, the American Red Cross does offer an online course for adult, child, and baby CPR training for less than $50. This is not an advertisement. The Red Cross isn't sponsoring this video. It's just something we're recommending as a resource if it's something you're worried about. This course is online only, and while it won't give you a government workplace certification, hands-on in-person training is required for that. If all you're after is the knowledge you need to perform CPR on someone who's choking, this course fits the bill. So I highly recommend you check that out if it's something you're interested in, and I'll put a link to it in the description below. So a lot of what we've talked about today is going to help prevent the possibility of choking in the first place, like serving food in small pieces, especially when you're just starting out. Make them small, and then when you think they're small enough, go smaller. There's actually another great book we used called Baby-Led Feeding, which we highly recommend because it contains sizing and portion guides that change as your baby grows, and you can check that out in the description below as well. Also, always be sure your child is sitting upright while eating, of course, and always stay close by to supervise and watch them whenever there's food on their plate. So today we've talked about why we chose baby-led weaning for Xander, going straight from nursing to solids, and it's because we felt it was a better way to foster his growth by giving him the freedom to explore. We do wish you the very best in your own baby weaning adventures, and if you have any tips or experiences to share with other parents, be sure to drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this video and you think you'd enjoy watching lots of others like it, we would love for you to join us by subscribing to the channel. We're not experts, we're just parents who want to be better and do better for our kids, and we hope that by sharing our experiences with you, we can help you do the same. So be sure to give us a thumbs up if you think we're doing well, and we will see you in the next one. It's the only pacifier he'll take. You're a silly boy, mister. What a cutie. Oh my gosh. You're just so precious. So precious.